Welcome to Scrum Masters Elite _UK, a place for deep insights into sports, leadership, and team spirit. If you enjoyed today's story, please subscribe to the channel and join us on the journey.
A glorious year for South African rugby, when success is not only victory, but legacy. Some sports stories go far beyond a single match, a season, or even a championship. They become symbols of effort, unity, progress within a sport, and sometimes even the spirit of an entire nation. When I look back at South African rugby in 2025, I feel that it was exactly one of those stories, a year in which achievements were measured not only by trophies or wins, but also by the inspiration, values, and legacy left for the future. At the center of this story stands Malcolm Marx, who ended 2025 by winning the SA Rugby Player of the Year award, after previously being named World Rugby Player of the Year. This is not just an individual accolade. To me, it represents endurance, the ability to maintain excellence in one of the most physically demanding sports in the world. When I heard the news of his victory, the first thing that came to mind was not competition between players, but the long journey behind every award. Elite sport always has a side that fans rarely see. Long training sessions, silent injuries, psychological pressure, and the sacrifices made by families, teammates, and coaches. Because of that, an individual award never truly belongs to one person. It is the result of an entire sporting ecosystem.
When an individual represents a collective spirit, Malcolm Marx's career illustrates something I have always believed. Talent may help an athlete shine, but discipline and team spirit are what allow them to remain at the top. Winning this award again, after first receiving it in 2017, demonstrates remarkable consistency in a sport as physically intense as rugby. The 8 years between those titles represent more than time. They represent growth, tactical evolution, new generations of players, and increasingly fierce competition. What also impressed me was that Marx prevailed over outstanding nominees such as Pieter-Steph du Toit and Sasha Feinberg-Ngumezulu. These names represent different styles and generations within South African rugby. Their presence alone shows the depth of talent within the country's rugby system. In sport, I believe there are two kinds of victories. The first is the victory on the scoreboard. The second, deeper and more meaningful, is the victory in the hearts of fans. Players like Marx often achieve both. A year when the entire system shined. If we only focus on individual awards, we might miss the bigger picture of 2025. What truly made me reflect was how the entire South African rugby system reached new heights together. Under the leadership of head coach Rassie Erasmus, the Springboks successfully defended their Rugby Championship title, winning 11 of their 13 international matches. To me, these numbers represent far more than statistics. They represent tactical consistency, discipline, and most importantly, trust between players. In team sports, tactics can be drawn on a board, but team spirit cannot be forced. It can only be built over time, through respect and shared belief in a common goal. That is why when I read comments from Mark Alexander, president of SA Rugby, I sensed genuine pride, not only for a team, but for an entire sporting culture.
He described 2025 as potentially the greatest year in South African rugby history. At first, that sounded ceremonial, but when looking at the bigger picture, the statement begins to make perfect sense. The rise of women's rugby. One of the most thought-provoking aspects of 2025 was the progress of South African women's rugby. For many years, women's sports had to fight for equal recognition, but 2025 seemed to mark a turning point. Springbok women's star Nadine Roos won the SA Rugby Women's Player of the Year award for the second consecutive season. Even more significant was the achievement of the Springbok women, who reached the Rugby World Cup playoff stage for the first time. When I read about this, I did not see only a sporting achievement. I saw a sign of social change. Sport has always been a mirror of society. When women receive greater opportunities to compete, to be supported, and to be recognized, it reflects progress within society itself. To me, Nadine Roos's story is a reminder that talent has no gender. Opportunity is the real difference. The value of recognition. Another interesting element of the 2025 awards was the introduction of new categories celebrating women's rugby. This signals a growing understanding within sports organizations. Sustainable development cannot rely on only one part of the system. Recognizing players such as Bayahanda Dolph and Shilton van Wyk also highlights that success does not belong only to the men's national team. It exists across all levels, from youth teams and sevens rugby to domestic competitions. It made me reflect on how strong sporting cultures are built. They cannot rely on a few stars. They require development systems, a sporting culture, and a community of passionate supporters.
The role of leadership. You cannot speak about South African rugby without mentioning inspirational leaders. One such figure is Springbok captain Siya Kolisi, who received the 1995 Spirit Award for his contributions to unity and social inclusion. This award inevitably brings to mind the legacy of Nelson Mandela, who famously used rugby as a tool to unite the country after apartheid. For me, this is one of the most powerful examples of how sport can transcend the field. Sport can connect communities, bridge past and future, and shape cultural identity. When a player like Kolisi carries that spirit forward, it shows that sport does not only produce champions, it produces symbols. Historic milestones. Another emotional moment in the 2025 story was the recognition of career milestones. For example, Nolusindiso Bui became the first female Springbok to earn 50 international caps. The number may look simple, but for an athlete, each appearance represents years of dedication and sacrifice. Milestones like this remind me that sport is not only about moments of glory. It is a long journey of perseverance. Lessons beyond the field. When reflecting on all these stories, I realized that what made 2025 special for South African rugby was not only the trophies. It was the combination of individual brilliance, collective strength, inspirational leadership, and a long-term vision for the future. For me personally, this story carries several important lessons. The first lesson is perseverance. Great success rarely comes quickly. It is usually the result of years of consistent effort. The second lesson is team spirit. No one achieves great success alone. The third lesson is the social responsibility of sport. Great athletes do not play only for themselves, they represent communities, young generations, and the positive values society needs.
Thank you for following Scrum Masters Elite_UK. Success is not only about winning, it is also the legacy of discipline, teamwork, and perseverance. See you in the next video.